Wait a second here till it
Okay.
pops up. There we go. Hi, everyone. It's Cricket Barrientos at Sounds of Autism, and I'm here today with Monica. Monica's a mom of two children that have autism. And Monica, right now, she's living the single mom life because her hubby is working on some things before he comes back over from Mexico. And so she's doing this on her own. And I just asked her 2 minutes ago, how are you so strong? Because I remember when I was a single mom with two kids and one was autistic, it was still the hardest life. But anyway, hi, Monica. How are you today?
I'm good. Thank you. How are you?
You're welcome. Good. Thank you. Monica, I work with a lot of first responders, and I've sat in meetings probably the last, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 years. And one of the most common questions from these people are, how do you work with somebody that is nonverbal, especially during crisis? And I asked every one of them in different conversations, have you ever spoken to a teacher or a mom or a parent or a dad? Because they're going to give you the answers. Guys, it's a hidden answer, and the answer is like right in front of you. Just find that parent because they know, they do it every single day, 24/7. And so, the light bulbs go on because people don't think outside that box. They think, oh, I'm at work and this is what I'm supposed to do. And that's what our nonprofit does, is it really teaches people to utilize the tools that are around you. And if you don't have those tools, reach out to an organization like us. We have over 850 community partners that we can reach out to ask for help, and tons of families. So, Monica, I would love for you to share just a little bit about your experience with your kids, and give us some background of maybe how you started with this. What did you have to learn, the easy way or the hard way, and where did you get your wisdom and knowledge?
What do we have to learn as far as Max being nonverbal and how to communicate, or as far as
Yeah.
the whole? Because it's so
No,
much.
I would pick a topic because we're going to definitely have to have a few shows, because honestly, this is not, I mean, you've been dealing with this for many, many years, and it's not easy. Sometimes you might even have to change what you were doing at the beginning, and now you're doing it a different way because you either learned or it just wasn't working anymore. So I would love to know, maybe at the beginning stages, when they're younger, and your son was, you wanted to have that conversation with him, and you just realized that that wasn't going to happen. Like, how did you, get the answers that you needed, especially if he was hurt or injured or felt sick and things like that?
We started. It was really hard with Max because we wouldn't know. And to be clear, we have another daughter who has autism, and she is verbal, and she says everything. But there was a time when she was actually going to school, and she had a pair of shoes that she used on the track, and they must have been on the construction field when they were in school. There was a nail in her shoe on the bottom of her heel that caused an infection on her heel because she kept wearing them like that, and she never said anything for weeks, for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. And I saw blood on her shoe, and I said, "What's going on?" And I said, "Maddie, how long has that been there?" And I had to take her to the doctor for a tetanus shot, and they had to sew up her little foot. She never said anything. She just knew she had to put her shoes on, so she put them on, and it hurt, and she just wore them to school. So in that case, we had to find the clues, and she's verbal, but she had no sense of, I should tell my mom there's something wrong with my shoe. And I felt, really guilty because I'm like, I give her a shower every day. How did I not see that? But I didn't see it. It was way on the bottom of her heel in the little corner, and I didn't see it. And she just kept doing it until I found out. And we talked to her, hey, you need to tell us. And with Max, it's different. Max doesn't talk. You kind of touch him and say, does this hurt? And kind of look in his eyes and make sure he's looking at you. We've gotten to the point where now he can answer yes or no questions. So it's a little bit easier. So I'll say, Max, does it hurt? Yes or no? And he'll say yes. But you need to make sure you're looking in his eyes. And he has a couple of words. He'll say when something hurts him, because he ate salsa with his dad once and it was very spicy, he'll say spicy pica when he's got a cut. Or the dog nipped at him, he'll say spicy, spicy pica. And you're like, no, spicy is a salsa. It hurts. And you have to ask him, where does it hurt? And kind of use your hand and make sure you're looking in his eyes and grab his hand and kind of touch him. Does this hurt? Does this hurt? And then he should give you a response. But a lot of times we don't get an answer as to what hurts. And you're just watching and checking symptoms and taking him to the doctor and trying to calm him down there, because when he was really small we didn't get any words. Um, we just keep an eye out, keep watching, hey, is it this, is it that? Does this hurt? And the most you can do is ask and, and feel powerless, but that's all you can do. You take him to the doctor when you notice something's a little off. Maybe he's throwing a little bit more tantrums than he should. Max gets very hyper when he's going to get sick, and he starts getting very naughty. He'll throw stuff in the pool, and things he's not supposed to, kind of, from what we understand, to grab your attention, because he doesn't know how to tell you that something's hurting him. And he'll use a couple of words. He'll say throat dark red, blood, when his throat hurts. There's no blood there. And I don't know where he's associating that from, but that's what he'll say.
So it could be like they say echolalia or scripting, like he's watching a TV show and that's what they say and he identifies with it.
Correct.
Which is, I mean, that's amazing. Correct. Because typically they don't relate like this to apples to oranges. They don't do that, right? So, that's really good.
Or he'll say temperature, doctor.
Yeah.
And he won't have a temperature, but I know he doesn't feel good because he's saying doctor.
Yeah. So okay, so I was in the restaurant industry for 30 years. And when I first started, no clue what I was doing. But as I was around people more and more and more, I would realize if somebody was looking for the bathroom, or I would realize if somebody needed something because of their body language, right? Mm-hmm. So a lot of what I learned, I started doing I call it silent service, because I would go and ask people like, how is everything? How is everything? How is everything? Because I was doing my job. And I know that people were trying to have a conversation like this, and then they'd say, how is everything? And you have to stop your conversation. Everything's great. Then come back and go, what were we talking about? And I hated interrupting, because some of those conversations were important. Maybe a husband and wife fighting over something, or, they were getting engaged, or I didn't want to interfere. So instead of that, I tell my servers, like, you're not invited to the party, so don't become the part of their party. Just touch their table, and that touch, if they need something, they'll see that hand. Mm-hmm. But if they don't, they're just going to ignore you. And that's okay. We just wanted to have a great experience, but don't ignore them when they're ready to pay, because they're ready to go. So, and we worked on those things, but I think body language is probably a big part of this. Yes.
I think so. I think that, my son is very hyper. He has ADHD with the capital H and the hyperactivity. And so when he starts laying down, then we know something's wrong. When he starts slowing down and you're just watching for different signs, doing things that are destructive that normally he wouldn't do, looking like he's a little bit more tired, wanting to sleep. He doesn't do those things. He's up at 5 and he's down at 8 every day. So if he's down earlier and he's laying down, there's something wrong, even if he's not telling us.
One of the issues that officers are seeing in firefighters, really just anybody I call it responders, right? Medical, anybody that's dealing with crisis. And when they're talking to me, they say, a lot of the doctors will say, well, I don't even know what's hurting him. And if he comes in an ambulance because they found him and mom and dad aren't there, they have no idea what to do. And so, in officers, they say a lot of these kids elope at 10 years old, no diaper, no shoes. They just run out of their house and they find them running down the street. And a lot of times it's not intentional. It's because they got out of the house. They figured out how to get out, and mom and dad were sleeping or taking a shower, and they realize, and then they call, my son's missing, and they don't know, right? But by that time, the officers have already picked them up, or the firefighters. But then they're like, okay, so we want to know where he lives, or we want to know this or that. So I guess my question would be, if your son were able to get out of the house and he's running down the street and somebody finds him, meaning first responders, because somebody called, what would you say would be a good approach for them based on your son? Because we know that they're all different, right? All their kids are different. And my son didn't like to be touched. He felt like it was burning him when people were touching him. But your son might have something different. So what would you say to an officer if you know that your son might be in crisis because he's out there and he doesn't know where he's at, but he's excited to be out there? What would you suggest?
Yeah, if he was excited to be out there, he'd be pinching himself. He pinches himself a lot on the chest. He'd be biting his lips, he'd be jumping, he'd be tightening his hands, and he wouldn't know how to say where he lives. He knows my name, and I didn't know that, but when he was on the bus the first time, we got him on the bus for his IEP to help with independence. He didn't know how to tell them where he lived, but he kept saying, home Monica, home Monica. So at least he knows my name. I didn't know he knew my name.
Were you like, yes? The bus driver's probably like, there's these.
Yeah, because you ask him, what's your name? And he says, Monica. And I'm like, your name is not Monica. That is my name. And he just laughs. So but yeah, he doesn't know where he lives. He doesn't know his address. He doesn't know my phone number. I have a bracelet that I made him, but he takes it off.
Yep.
So that doesn't work. We tried the stickers. He takes them off. Anything you put on him with our address, he has taken off, and it doesn't work for us. I think the thing the police officer could do is make sure that they get on his level because he's little, he's 10. And he's not skinny, but he's still short and little. So, maybe get down, kind of look at him in the face and make sure they're looking at you because he's got so many things going on from being outside. He's going to be overstimulated with the cars and the birds and the sounds and the kids and anything else going on and the lights and not knowing where he is. So, just to make sure the officer's right in front of him. And my son doesn't mind being touched. I know some do. Just kind of hold out his hand and see if Max will give him his hand and say, I'm going to help you. Help. I want to help you. Can I help you? Yes or no? And try the yes or no questions. Make sure they use the word help. Make sure they use the word safe, and make sure they use the word home. Let's try and get you home.
Yeah.
Do you know where you live? Do you remember how to get home?
Yeah.
What's your mom's name?
And Monica, my husband and I started asking Landon when we were thinking, we were so behind on everything. We were busy, we were doing life and we didn't know. But looking back, I would tell the parents, when you're leaving your house, you can say, okay, we're driving down the street. Now we're going to turn here. Talk them through everything. So you're conditioning them and getting that short-term memory to become a long-term memory, right? Because they might not remember, but if you say, where do you live? They might start walking towards your house. Follow them, because that's how they're communicating with you. But if they're injured, at that point, you're just going to have to ask them, does this hurt or does this hurt? And they might say throat, blood, red, or, all the things that you just said, but that doesn't mean that that's what's wrong. They're just saying, they're confirming that they're injured.
Yeah. And maybe use smaller words. Like if Max were injured, you could ask him his name. I don't know if he would tell you his name, but say, we're going to go and get you help. Let's go help you. Let's find mom and dad.
Yeah.
Not huge elaborate phrases like, good evening, young man, where have you been, where do you think you're going?
It's not gonna work. Yeah, you got to come down to that level. Like, you got to go to 0 to 5, and if you don't have kids,
on your left foot hurt.
Yes. Well,
you don't know their right from their left, right?
Landon had a tack. So when you told me that story about the thing in the shoe, he had a tack in his shoe and I didn't know. And he kept telling me that the shoe hurt, and I looked and I couldn't find it. And then I'm like, I never looked at the bottom. He always said it was on the inside. Of course it was on the inside, but you got to rub your hands. You got to look the whole shoe over. There's definitely something, but we as parents, because sometimes everything hurts. So when they're in that stage of things, you're like, well, is it sensory? Like his foot hurts because it's a Nike shoe and that burns his foot. But if we go with an Adidas, it's so crazy, but that's real. Okay. But let me ask you, there's a lot of kids that elope and they'll end up from like Levine all the way to like Tucson. Like they know how to navigate the transportation and, and a lot of times they're actually watching how you leave your house, but they're not doing it for the purpose of remembering. They're doing it as, okay, when I get home, I could get out of this house and I could go this way because I know, and now I just got to watch how my mom locks the door. Like, I call them escape artists. Like, these kids are brilliant. Do you deal with anything like that?
We're getting there. I told you just 2 days ago, my little girl walked out the front door that was locked. And we knew because the ring system went off. I was out picking up groceries with my son, and my sister-in-law and my brother were watching her. And they said, she got upset because there was no more iPad. The battery went down, and we said no. And she walked out the door. I said, okay, well, that's not okay.
That's not okay.
Wander and take every activity that was happening away, the internet away. And she's got to earn the trust again because she doesn't have it. And they have to learn that that's not okay. I said, Maddie, you can't just go outside. What if you got hit by a car? What if a murderer was outside? She's all, well, then I'd come back inside. I said, no, you'd be murdered. You can't, you don't get that chance. She's a young female. She can't be out on her own yet. She doesn't know.
I'm telling you, I have a mom whose daughter, same age. No, she was 2 years older. She didn't realize that somebody was grooming her on her online gaming. And they were pulling her out of the house on the online gaming. Okay, don't tell your parents when they're not watching. You come out, you bring all your technology with you, and then we'll pick you up and we'll take you where you want to go. And she's thinking this is her boyfriend.
Of course.
So these things happen, and I share that with you because you're very aware. You have the right technology on your house to pay attention to it. You're involved. You're trying to overcome all the hurdles and obstacles. You just said, I had to quit my job. I had to stop working because of this happening in my life. I needed to make sure that I was the best mom I could be for my children because that's what I chose to do when I decided to have kids. there are a lot of families out there that don't acknowledge or they don't know what they're dealing with. Like the mom that you said you met, she thought her child was just ADHD. ADHD is the first diagnosis. The autism may not exhibit itself until a little later. And when that starts happening, they won't go back and get the diagnosis, families, because they don't even know they should. So we're teaching them those things. But I want to go back to empowerment. So what we do is with this information that you and I are discussing right now, we take this video and we make it into smaller sections and we talk about little portions of what we discussed, and we basically give a firsthand experience of what it is to raise a child that is this intelligent and has the ability to do all these things, or not. And we teach other people about it because they don't know. And it doesn't matter what your title is. You could be the mayor of a city. You could be the president of the United States. You don't know. And so with this, it's going to help. But we really want to help empower our first responders, because if our kids are in crisis, as a parent, that to me is trauma for me as a parent. If my kid's in crisis and he's already living that life every day, and now it's like he just got into a car accident, he's bleeding, or something happened, he got out of the house and he doesn't know where he's at, that's trauma. I will not go to sleep until I find my child. And so I just want to make sure that we empower our officers, empower our first responders, so that if they have this kid laying on their hospital bed and they don't know where mom and dad are because the kid can't talk and say who their parents are, there are things you need to pay attention to, details that will help you. He will motion or he will be doing things. And when you're describing this kid, when they do an Amber Alert or not an Amber Alert, but a missing child's alert, and you're like, I found this kid, but he pinches himself. And when he gets excited or he gets happy and he does, mom that has this kid is going to know that's her child because of those things, right? So we need to make sure that those types of things are acknowledged. And a lot of times people miss the signs because they don't know what the signs are. Make sense?
Correct.
You
Correct.
know. So Monica, I thank you today for being on here and, sharing your personal life with people. I feel doing this for 20 years now that the only way to train people about autism is to just keep bringing awareness to it. And because there's so many different moving parts and so many different personalities that you're dealing with on each individual, your information is going to help people, moving forward. So thank you for being honest and sharing your life and not being afraid to do so. And I hope that we can have another conversation about this, because you're very helpful with many different levels, so thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. And we'll see everybody, on the next show. Thank you.